Okay, so I'm now going to do a share screen here for just a minute or two. It looks like the Zoom is just starting at YouTube. There it goes. So, hey, Mike, would you do me a favor and just go over to Zoom and or YouTube and check, make sure it looks like it should be running now? Well, I guess I won't worry about that. So we should be on YouTube now. Mike, or someone can, Mike, can you check that? Or
I'm looking, Ron.
okay, thanks. Should be running. So the webinar will start at 7 o'clock. We've got another 4 minutes before we start. I think all the panelists are here and have checked in. And we've got, for attendees right now, we've got, what does that say, 20? 12 so far. Okay. Okay, if I've got the settings correct, panelists, only the panelists and Stephanie can see the chat. And really that's only for background, taking care of information. We're not going to put any questions there or anything like that. And I need to take me out of here. Hey, Jeff, would you say something again? Just want to check the microphone again. I'm sorry, you're on mute, sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, okay, great. Yeah, you sound good. And Wes, you sounded good earlier, Dean.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, you sound real good also. Okay. Not sure where Stephanie is. Let's go down here now.
Ron, I'm here. Can you not see me?
Yeah, we can't see you. All we can see is your mule.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you, but I'd like to be able to see you too.
I know. Hold on 1 second.
Okay.
Gotta give me 30 seconds and then you'll be able to see me.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Okay, we've got 21 people on board now. And the video, YouTube video, let's see here. Oh yeah, the YouTube video is running also. So the YouTube video is an automatic recording and it'll stay on till at least after the primaries. So. Oh crap.
Ron, it's working.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that was the recording of me on YouTube. There's a 30-second delay, so I had to shut that off so I don't go crazy, and probably everybody else. Okay, so Mary Vick and Deb Lincoln and that phone number you see there, that's Phyllis. They're all members of the support team that's putting on the forum. And Mike is joined us as a co-host in case we have technical difficulties. He and I are the technical people. And Stephanie's our moderator. And I think we're there. How do I get these other? Okay, I'm going to mute myself now. So Stephanie, when you're ready, when 7 o'clock hits, you're on.
Okay.
You never know. I'll bring it to you.
Okay, welcome everyone. I can see some of you out there and some of you on YouTube. My question is, Ron, or one of the candidates, can you see me?
I see your mule picture.
Does my
Stephanie-
mule picture? Yep,
Stephanie,
I'm having a,
we saw you for about 20 seconds and then you videoed out again.
okay. And then it went away again?
Yeah,
okay.
we're back on the mule again.
Okay, so let me see what's going on here. I think, let's see. Okay, is it back?
Yes.
Okay, I think it's right now. All right, so welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. This is the second of what we hope will be several forums of interest to our Wahkiakum County residents and beyond for this 2020 election cycle. We are sponsored by the Wahkiakum County Republican Party and the Wahkiakum County Democratic Party. We're working together for the good of our county and all of the rural folks that live here in Wahkiakum. We're also live streaming this event on YouTube. So welcome all of you who are watching it on YouTube. And I'm actually gonna close this blind because it looks like I have a line across my face. Is that better? Okay, no, not really. So I don't know where that's coming from. All right. So again, my name's Stephanie Lights and I'm the principal at Wahkiakum High School. I'm going to be the moderator for tonight's State Senator Candidate Forum. Our panelists tonight are Dean Taco and challengers Jeff Wilson and Wes Cormier. I'm going to go ahead and read you the rules for tonight's event. All of the questions, as you know, have been submitted ahead of time in response to the request we put out in the Eagle. There will be no questions taken from the audience. I will ask a question, then each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond. With 15 seconds remaining, our timer will give you a warning. And then at the end of those 2 minutes, she'll simply state time's up. We ask that you honor that time. I will allow you to finish any thoughts that you have. But if you continue too long, I'll go ahead and stop you. If you do have time remaining from your 2 minutes, you can speak on a previous topic if you'd prefer. But there's not going to be any banking of time for later. I will rotate the order in which we ask you the questions. We want to make sure that we only hear from you as a candidate and not other people. So let's go ahead and get started. The first question, I think, is an easy one, and we'll go ahead and start with you, Dean. Would you just take 2 minutes and tell us about yourself and why you are running?
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'll give you the real short biographical background. I was born in El Waco, lived there till I was 14, moved to Cathlamet, graduated from Cathlamet High School, went to LCC for 2 years, Western Washington State College, now university. Graduated with a BS degree, went in the service for a while, came back home, was appointed to the city council of Cathlamet for a couple of years, and I ran for county assessor in Wahkiakum County and won. Served a term there, and then spent 20 years as the chief deputy assessor in Cowlitz County. And when Ray Ryan, the assessor at that time, retired, I ran for assessor, got elected twice, and spent 6 years as a county assessor there. Got appointed to the House of Representatives for the 2005 session and ran 6 times and got reelected. And then when Brian Hatfield left the Senate, I was appointed to take his place in the Senate. And I've been there, ran for reelection the next year, and spent 5 years in the Senate. I'm currently the chair of the local government committee. I've had a lot of experience with working with local governments, and people, when they get to the legislature, kind of get a little niche that they work in. Nurses tend to go toward the healthcare issues, teachers toward education. And with my background in local government, I have been pretty involved in all the legislation.
15 seconds.
All the legislation that goes on with local governments. And that's kind of my passion. And that's why I want to go back, is to continue to work with local governments.
Time is up.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Wes, would you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're running?
First, I just want to thank you for hosting this event. You know, it's a great opportunity to be able to send our message out. My name is Wes Cormier. I'm running for the Washington State Senate, and you know, tonight you're going to hear from a straight shooter. You know, I'm not a career politician. I don't speak like a politician. I'm a very strong conservative libertarian that believes in term limits, less government, less taxes, less regulations. And not only do I believe in those principles, but I also have accomplished that as a Grays Harbor County Commissioner, serving my 2nd term, my 8th year. And a little bit about myself: I'm a father, I'm a son, I'm a husband. I've been married to my wife for 13 years, and together we have 3 beautiful little boys, Noah, Samuel, and Michael. And I'm happy to be here, and I look forward to talking more about my record. But I'm running because it was kind of a series of events, from running as a county commissioner and wanting to make my community better, to understanding what the state imposes on us at the local level. And so this is really what sparked me to run for the Washington State Senate, among other things. So thank you.
Thank you, Wes. Jeff, will you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and why you are running?
I will. Thank you very much. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Jeff Wilson. I came to Cowlitz County in beautiful Southwest Washington nearly 50 years ago. I'll be approaching my 60th birthday soon, and currently married and have a wife and 2 grown children. During my time in Cowlitz County, I started to go to work at age 11. And at age 11, I learned that hard work is really a core value to being successful in life. Having worked full time since age 11, I attended local schools, graduated from Mark Morris High School, and then attended Western Washington University. At the age of 26, I started my first business. And to this day, that business is still providing family wage jobs. I've owned and operated a number of businesses. In fact, I believe I'm the only candidate that still operates a business. And therefore, I understand both being an employee of the private sector and a business owner. That's given me a view to the problems that we all face now going on in the legislature, the challenges in order to be successful in a rural district known as the 19th Legislative District. So I'm really running to restore the voice of the voters that I feel has been removed. And in doing so, also bring back some trust I feel has been removed by the legislature in the past few years. I'm a hard worker. I am not a career politician. I have a practiced and proven track record. I have done things that very few people can claim, that is to reduce taxes and eliminate fees. I'm very proud of my record.
15 seconds.
I look forward to serving the voters of the 19th district. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Our next question is, what would be your most important legislative priority if elected? Wes, will you go ahead and start?
Sure. To start would be every year that I'm in office, I would propose term limits. I think that passing term limits in not only state government, but it'd be nice at the federal level as well, will do so much for ending this career politician system that we have. I think that'll go a long way. Among my platform with property rights, transparency, and fiscal responsibility, I think really one of the top things that I'm going to propose is term limits. I think that will go a long way with, like I've said, getting rid of career politicians.
Jeff, would you answer that question, please?
Thank you. Yes, the most important legislative priority to me is really more of a process than it is a priority. As I said earlier, I'd like to restore the voice and the trust that I feel has been removed by our electeds. And quite frankly, that should not be allowed. A priority is to respect the will of the voters and to enforce and act upon the Constitution of the state of Washington. I feel that being a priority alone, once you have that conduct and you act appropriately, I think we can accomplish a lot more. However, it's been proven quite clearly that transparency is a word that we should never, ever take for granted. Quite clearly, we're going to talk tonight, I hope, about things such as ghost title or title-only bills. These are disrespectful to the voters. And speaking of disrespectful for the voters, we've heard loud and clear from Olympia that they're not listening. They're not listening because of the carbon tax, because of the sex ed comprehensive bill, because of the $30 car tabs. This list is very voluminous, and I suspect that we need to get back to gathering the respect and the trust of the voters again. I think that alone will go a long way with priorities. We all are faced with the mechanical priorities such as budgets and everyday problems of, quite frankly, running the state and running a state during a pandemic, which nobody has done before. However, this time around, the voters are going to need to ask to choose between somebody that has made their living and still works for the government versus myself, which I am the only independent that still has a private sector job as a taxpayer versus receiving my income from the taxpayer. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Dean, would you go ahead and answer that question?
Yeah, the first thing I want to say, though, is address the term limits. I can tell you, I don't think on the state level they're really necessary. On a federal level, I think you can make the argument, but on a state level, I'll give you an example. When I first got in the legislature in 2005, of the 96 legislators in the House of Representatives that were there, only 15 are left. And after this election with retirements, there's only going to be 10. And in many of those seats, they have switched numerous times. So I don't think that that's really necessary. And there is institutional knowledge that goes along when you have people that serve for more than just a term or two. My goals there, obviously, is, we've got budget problems and, trying to balance this budget, which I assume we'll get into later. But like I said earlier, I do a lot of stuff with local governments, and one of my goals is to try and do some things with the Growth Management Act. I had a large study that was going to be done this year, and the governor vetoed it to try and save some money out of the budget. And like I say, local government is kind of my passion. I'm working with the counties and the cities right now to look at taking away some of the mandates that they have to use when they have either state or local monies to be spent, that they have to be spent in a specific place, and give them some flexibility to try and get through this pandemic financial situation that we're in. Some of the other issues that came up, I hope we can address them later. So I'll just kind of end it there.
Okay, thank you, Dean. Our next question, how will you reach across the aisle to get your legislative priority passed? And Jeff, you're gonna start off with that question.
Well, we all know that in a political world, we're going to have to always work with people that have a difference of opinion. And in Washington State Senate, of course, that usually boils down to Republicans and Democrats. And for that reason, I do like to point out the already unfair fight that is occurring in Olympia. Currently, there are 28 Democratic senators compared to 21 Republicans. And right off the bat, that does put one party simply at an unfair advantage. In fact, it gives the other party a chance to bully. They can bully because they also control the House and the gubernatorial seat. Reaching across the aisle is something I have been practicing for well over 4 years. As a port commissioner, that's a nonpartisan race. I have to routinely reach across the aisle with all walks of life, political life, in order to get things done. And one recent example is my position at the Port of Longview has allowed us to work with Cowlitz County and other local elected officials and bureaucrats in order to come together for a common problem, which is, in this case, to fund the surveys for the Cowlitz River, where the federal government has let us down. We were able to intercede and work with each other across all aisles locally in order to get that project complete. And I'm very proud of that. It shows that you do have to have a willingness to go between the aisles. But again, you still work for the voters. You don't work for the person across the aisle. And so therefore, I'd like to reemphasize that whoever goes to Olympia, and it should be myself, because I have been a businessman for so long, I have been able to reach across and conclude beneficial programs for all. And as a port official, I have done so as well.
Thank you, Jeff. Dean, would you answer that question for us?
Yeah, I've got a great history of working across the aisle. I mean, I'm fair to say that probably some of my best friends in the legislature are from the other side of the aisle. I work with them on a number of things, and I kind of have a reputation there of doing that. And on a lot of issues, there's a bunch of us that are quite moderate that work with them. Jeff mentioned something about the carbon tax. Well, if you'll notice, we have not had a carbon tax pass. And the reason is that there are some of us that don't, on our side of the aisle, that do not agree with how the carbon taxes have been laid out in the past, and we have not allowed those to come forward. And that was with a bipartisan support. So being a moderate that I am and working with them as much as I do, and my own caucus, the Democratic Senate caucus, understands that there are several of us there that have a reputation that we're going to move some of these things forward or not move them forward. So I think if you just look at the bills I sponsor and how many co-sponsors I have that are Republicans on those bills, you'll see that I got a pretty good reputation of I work on their bills, they work on my bills, and have been pretty successful.
Thanks, Dean. Wes, how will you reach across the aisle?
Well, currently, as a Grace Harbor County Commissioner, we have 9 cities in our county. I also work with 14 elected officials because commissioners, we essentially oversee budgets and contracts for every elected and non-elected department in the county. And so I work with 14 other elected officials, 13 of which are not of my party. And we work throughout budgets and contracts over the last 8 years. And so, I've done that on budgetary issues, on policy. I won't compromise my values. I won't compromise my principles. Um, you know, for and so in that respect, I can work on budgets with across the aisle. But as far as policy, I'm running on my record. I'm running on my philosophy, and I think that's important for people to understand. That's what you're voting for. You're voting for a philosophy when you vote in a candidate, and that's a package deal. And so that's why I'm putting myself out there and being very detailed about what I stand for and how I will vote. And so what I won't compromise on are those principles that I uphold. And what I'm willing to work across the aisle on is budgetary items, because I think that there's a lot of leeway in budgets to work with the other side.
Okay, thank you, Wes. All right, question 4. In facing the inevitable budget shortfall resulting from the pandemic, what programs are you willing to fight for as it relates to funding? And how do you think citizens in your district will benefit from these programs? Dean, it's your turn to go first.
Well, first you have to realize that out of that roughly $53 billion budget, about half of it cannot be touched because of the McCleary decision and the mandatory language in our Constitution to fund K-12 education. So there's about half of it can't be touched. There's another pretty good percentage that can't be touched because it's federal Medicaid dollars. So it doesn't give us really the entire budget to go after. So you want to know what I'll protect is I'll really protect and go fight for early childhood learning. I've been a great supporter of Head Start ECAP for years. It's been shown that the dollars you spend there really do save incredible amounts of money in education, incarceration, and medication in the future. It's really has a high payoff to put money into early childhood. The other thing that's really important to me is the healthcare workers and those policies and things that take care of our vulnerable seniors, our seniors that are living at home, being taken care of by home healthcare workers, and our Medicaid or our reimbursements to nursing homes and that type of thing. The further we can keep people down on that continuum of care, the cheaper it is in the long run.
15 seconds.
And so taking care of those vulnerable seniors and others that are vulnerable is going to be a priority for me.
Hey, thank you, Dean. Wes, would you like to go ahead and answer that question?
You bet. As a Grace Harbor County Commissioner, we currently oversee, all things COVID. We're experiencing some issues ourselves with, lack of revenue coming into the county, and we oversee about a $35 million general fund budget and $85 million miscellaneous fund budget. And so we're working through these issues at the county level. And what we do at the county level, it's priority-based budgeting. You look at your priorities, things like what's constitutional. You look at some of your necessities like law and justice, and those are the things that you prioritize. And you're going to have, essentially you're going to have 49 state senators and 98 House representatives coming together to set a priority-based budget on what they need. I refuse to raise taxes. So I've made a pledge not to raise taxes, and I will uphold that pledge just as I have as a Grace Harbor County Commissioner over the last 7 years, and I'll vote that way this year. But again, what you do is you prioritize. It's for me as a single state senator, I'll set my priorities, and again, you have to work across the aisle on budgets. And my priorities may not make all the top of the list, but I'll work hard for that. But at the end of the day, you have to make cuts because the government's not operating. The governor shut down many businesses through COVID, and we have to deal with the facts that we have in front of us. And I don't think right now businesses can take or incur more taxes on their backs because they're suffering as bad right now. So that's how I would address
15 seconds.
Thank you, Wes. Jeff?
Yes, thank you. Well, the programs I'm willing to fight for, there's two types of those programs. One, which is constitutionally mandated, and that will include the big one, which is funding public education. So the budgets end up with very little for discussion. I can clarify by the policies are needed for the legislative district of the 19th are going to be different than Seattle style politics. And what I mean by that is the legislative district that makes up the 19th never had a chance to catch up and recover of the job growth that, say, the Seattle and King County areas have had. In fact, we've been lagging behind. And why have we been lagging behind is really just too much government has been in front of us, creating a hurdle so that we can become successful. Programs that I'd be willing to fight for must come from a return on an investment. Therefore, businesses and restarting our economy is critical right now. We're past urgent. We're becoming critical. Small businesses are in trouble. Workers are not getting paid from employment security. 50-some thousand people still haven't had their claims processed. So the programs are going to range from survival programs to incentive programs, so the 19th district has a chance to recover and separate itself that much further from the overbearing Seattle style politics that I will not support. And that will include such greatest hits as no income tax, no additional gain tax. So it's more than just the programs I'm willing to fight for. It's the damage control that I'm willing to lay down in front of on behalf of the citizens of the 19th legislative district.
15 seconds.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. All right, our next question, number 5. What does defunding the police mean to you? And this time we'll have Wes. Will you go ahead and start?
Absolutely. Well, defunding the police is, for me, it's a Marxist catchphrase. And, the basics in local government is, law and justice. I mean, we have a right to due process. And, and part of that is having a strong law enforcement. I mean, it's good for the business community as well. The business community relies on our law enforcement whenever they have a 911 call, when someone's breaking in, they rely. You have a good law enforcement branch in your county or your city, then you're going to have a strong local economy as well. So, it's pretty disturbing what's coming out of Seattle and other large cities throughout the country regarding defunding the police. And I absolutely support law enforcement, and I think that when people need law enforcement, they're going to certainly, make the call when they need them as well. Thank you.
Okay. Jeff, how will you answer that question?
Well, I'm glad the question's poised tonight. I am not a supporter of defunding the police. However, the police budgets are like every other budget. They come before managers and the citizens ever so often for review. And I have no problem of defunding a unnecessary, non-essential or non-important item to a police budget, and in return refunding that money or adding additional funds to ensure that our police force moves into the 21st century, and that to include technologies that not only protect our law enforcement agencies, but also the community that we interact with. I'm a big fan of reform, not defunding. However, we have all seen on a national level, and of course, Seattle recently, we do need to look at some reformations of police, but we need to do this in a calm, collected manner, and we need to do it on a local basis. Policing, I don't believe we can cast a wide blanket and say a police department in one area is the same as another. We have different needs. Some departments may have a higher need for mental health counselors to ride along in a patrol car, or some rural communities that simply wouldn't be practical. But again, if we look at things like cameras and the ability to work with police unions to ensure we have the most properly trained and professional police force, that would mean a lot. I am not in any way, shape, or form interested in defunding to the point where you disband a police agency. That will simply take most of our societal
15
issues and
seconds.
put them into an uncontrolled version that I don't think any city or town of the legislative 19th district does not want this. I will support that.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Dean?
Yeah, you know, defund the police is a nice buzzword, but I don't think that it's a realistic thing. You know, just yesterday I met with the Police Chiefs and Sheriffs Association, which have endorsed my candidacy, as well as the State Troopers Associations. And they're willing to have those conversations. You know, they're more than happy, and I could certainly support the type of thing that they're doing down in Eugene and Springfield, Oregon, where you don't necessarily have to send a cop out to certain types of incidents with a badge and a gun. You can do it with social workers, with mental health people. So I think that's the thing. Rather than defund the police, it's let's look at some other structures that we can use. So flat out defund the police, no, I'm certainly not there, but I do think that there are some reforms. And then one of the reforms that I think we should have is there should be some kind of database, if you want to call it that, where a cop that really has done something wrong and has been disciplined for it goes into a database, so that when he goes for a job, you'll know that this is a guy that maybe you don't want to hire in your police department because he has a history of doing something in another department. But if we do that, you do have to be careful, because you can't just do it based on somebody had a complaint, because a lot of police officers get complaints or have complaints turned in on them when it's just somebody that's disgruntled that they got pulled over or, you know, got arrested for something. But if they truly have gone through the process and there's appeals and whatever, and they have done something that they were disciplined for, I think it should go into some kind of a database where people can see that in other jurisdictions.
We do that for our teachers. So, okay. Thank you. Our next question is, how would you protect the identity of rural communities from being swallowed up by big city policies? And Jeff, you'll go ahead and start us on that one.
Well, in the legislative 19th district is a very unique and a very special place in a number of ways. Look at the beauty that we have, the resources in front of us. We have everything from recreation to ability to manufacture and work and to produce a vibrant economy. And one thing that seems to get misapplied, of course, is the Gross Management Act. Now, that is something that's going to need to be reformed in the legislature. There are some overreaching policies to that. But really what it is to ensure local control and ensure that your local electeds do not align with their party just to be aligned with their party. Getting elected and becoming a state senator from the 19th district means your boss is the voter, not anybody else. Following the will of the voter and respecting the will of the voter, practicing and promising to uphold the Constitution is extremely important as a foundation. And big city policies, my heavens, they're all amongst us that I would not support. That would include such things as a soda tax, a head tax, an income tax, a gains tax. One of the big city problems is that it seems very simplistic to just tax your way into recovery or success. And that has been a tried and not proven technique for the 19th district. In fact, it's extremely important that we also utilize that some policies that may originate from Seattle do not apply or apply fairly to the rural districts. And, you know, that's one thing I think anybody watching tonight knows. My voice is loud and will be very clear. And that's the one thing. I will not be silenced in order to get along with some of my buddies across the aisle. The buddy is the voter, and we need to leave it at that.
Thank you, Jeff. All right, Dean?
Yeah, one of the frustrations of doing legislation is that when you do a bill or you make a law, it has to cover the entire state, and not every place in the entire state looks the same. Certainly Walla Walla doesn't look like Seattle, and Bellingham doesn't look like South Bend. And so you have to craft these things carefully. And I have been one that has, because all the Growth Management Act bills come through my committee, I've done a lot of stopping some things that probably my other two, my opponents here wouldn't have liked to have seen. So, you know, it's important to have a key person in those positions where you can actually run interference and do those kinds of things. As far as reforms, just last session, I sponsored a bill and got it out of the legislature and to the governor's desk to streamline the appeal process. The appeal process for land use decisions was quite cumbersome. And I hope that this streamlines it so some of these appeals can happen a little quicker. May not get the answer you want, but we are trying to speed things up. The one size fits all is something that's really tough to work around, because constitutionally you cannot just pick and choose where you want to have a law affect and not affect.
Okay, thank you, Dean. Wes?
As a local elected county commissioner, this one's kind of near and dear to my heart. You know, there was a U.S. Supreme Court member of the U.S. Supreme Court that said, let the states be laboratories of experiment, of freedom for the rest of the country, so they can, so they could experiment with different laws to see what's best, and then they would become models of what to do or what not to do. And I would apply that for the state of Washington. We should let our cities and counties become, laboratories of experiment and freedom, so we can discover what cities are doing things right and wrong. And, like Seattle's a great model of sometimes, really most often, what not to do. And, and like I said, as a county commissioner, it's really impacted me and the county and the other commissioners at our level, because, we have unfunded mandates. And, some of the questions that I'll ask as a Washington state senator are the citizens better served with this at the state level or at the county level? Most often services are better served at the local level, because somebody can come into my office and knock on my door right now, and they'll catch me, 5 or 6 days a week, at the county, or they can give me a call at home or at a coffee shop. And the further your elected officials get from you at the state and federal level, the less of a chance you have of reaching out to them. So, my goal as a state senator will be to push the standards low and let counties and cities, local jurisdictions, have the ability to make better decisions for their constituents. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Our next question, Dean, you're going to start. What will you do to bring high-speed internet to individual businesses and homes in the rest of District 19 within the next 2 years? And how do you plan to fund that?
Yeah, that's a good question. How are you going to fund it? And that is the problem. I've been attending some of the Wahkiakum County work group on rural high-speed internet, and it's just very apparent that last mile is expensive. The numbers that were thrown out at the last meeting was for the 1,750 roughly households that don't have high-speed internet, it'd be about $10 million. Well, the local people can't come up with that kind of money. The last mile is the problem. There is federal money, and I think it's something to the tune of about $3 billion going into rural broadband nationwide. But when you look at the kind of number I just gave you for those 1,700 and you spread that out across the country, that federal money is not going to go very far. One thing that I probably will support and is to let PUDs have retail sales authority for internet. I don't know that we need to do it across the entire state. We could maybe have it counties of, or PUDs in counties of a size 100,000 or less, or 500,000, you know, we can make a threshold like that, and let them have retail authority. And they can start doing with rural broadband, like what we did back in the 20s and 30s with the PUDs when we electrified the rural areas. They slowly worked their way out, and I think that's the model that's going to have to be used. But in the kind of money that we're talking about, you're not going to find that kind of money out of the state budget. Although we do allocate quite a bit of money to rural broadband, but it's certainly isn't enough to do this entire state.
Time's up.
Thank you. Wes, would you go ahead and answer that question?
Well, yeah, in the next 2 years, I think it's going to be difficult, considering, you know, the budget problems that the state of Washington's having currently. But in theory, if, you know, as I said in my last debate, you know, I think right now in Grays Harbor County, the Public Utility District is working on these things. You know, right now, your large corporations, your Comcasts, your CenturyLinks, they are not reaching out, as the senator said, the last mile. I know because I'm one of these folks that does not have high-speed internet, and so you know, like I said, you know, even in the last question, it's important for those items to be addressed at the local level, and I think that the currently our public utility district is doing that. And I think that's where it needs to stay. But as far as funding, I think that, you know, maybe create a fund, some kind of enterprise fund to do that. And for interested people, like I'd be interested to put money as an individual citizen toward that in my small community that I live in. And we did do that. And so what you do is you get interested parties. You know, they have a pilot program at the Grays Harbor Public Utility District, and it's been successful. And I think you keep it local, and then local people are going to see a demand or a necessity for this type of broadband internet, and they're going to take the responsibility upon themselves to find a way of paying for it. Thank you.
Jeff?
Yeah, well, this is a good question. They're all good questions. This is a very timely question, because one of the biggest lessons learned from the COVID pandemic is just how crippling it is to a community to not have high-speed internet. We're all going to find out here very quickly in the fall with public education how important internet is to a constitutional mandated service to every citizen in the state of Washington. So to be quite clear on this, I can understand how local levels would want lots of involvement to get such internet access or broadband access or whatever fills the need to its communities. But this is a state problem. And why it's a state problem is education is mandated. And now we're coming up with, is this not a tool that we may be facing with this fall? So I'm not against exploring funding possibilities from K-12 funding to help assist this. And in other local areas, I'm not afraid of public-private partnerships. What we do know, and we know quite clearly, is this is the #1 infrastructure that has allowed many people to survive, stay connected, get a medical appointment, and go to school, is all compliments of the internet. So if nothing else, I would like to make it a strict priority for us to tackle. In fact, I'm a little bit dismayed is why the legislators are not back in session working on this right now, or the governor hasn't called a session. These are so important. I don't like sitting on the side waiting for them to talk about it. They should already have been working and talking about this.
15 seconds.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Our next question. What can you do in our legislature to encourage job growth in District 19? And the person starting this question, well, I got to make sure here I didn't lose my spot. Oh, yep. Okay. Wes, I think it's your turn to go first.
Thank you. Well, first, I would say that with the exception of infrastructure, I don't think government creates jobs. What the government does is they sucks taxes out of the private sector to hire people, but that's not job creation. Job creation comes from the private sector. And what we can do at the state level and what I've done at the county level is make regulations easier for businesses to navigate. As a county commissioner on the property rights front, I exempted outbuildings up to 800 square feet. So in Grace Harbor right now, you don't need a permit, inspection, fee, or permission to build an 800 square foot building. I did this also with an expedited process to agriculture buildings. We exempted farm pads for farmers. And these are the types of things that can be done to help businesses and residents navigate through some of the red tape that government always provides. And I have a strong background in this. One of the things is when I first implemented the 800 square foot exemption in Grace Harbor County, some that were against it said basically that the county would lose revenue. In fact, we had 25 straight months of revenue from sales tax as a result of construction. And so while we might have lost permitting fees for these outbuildings, we received money through sales tax because the revenue spiked because there were more people building. And this is the mentality I'm going to bring
15
at
seconds.
the state level that I've already done at the county level. Thank you.
Thanks, Wes. Jeff, what will you do to encourage job growth?
Well, really, it's going to be lead by example. I've already done this. I'm known as being a serial entrepreneur. I have started multiple successful businesses. And therefore, as I said early, I'm the only candidate that is an employer and an employee. I have been reliant upon myself to create job growth. However, I took those same principles as private sector entrepreneur and I rolled that in to the Port of Longview, which I was elected as a commissioner in 2015 and was seated in 2016. So really to create job growth is you have to look amongst yourself and see what paths and what's the return on investment for your community. However, you've got to do this by also jumping up and down and say the biggest hurdle is those that have been elected before me. Those that have simply let bureaucratic programs like Department of Ecology be known as job killers well before they start. To encourage job growth, we're going to need to look back and find out how do we reform agencies like ecology and offer some elected or some accountability from a state agency that's gone rogue and that holds hostage the rural economies of the 19th district. So that's one thing that we can do. And quite frankly, I have protested the Department of Ecology. In 2018, I created a protest, a peaceful protest on the steps of the Capitol to represent my community as a port commissioner, asking for fairness and review by state agencies and reform, such things as timely permit review. Getting a simple question to a simple answer is going to be part of the solution. But job growth, I have years of experience at. I'm going to take exactly what I've been very good at and transform that into Olympia.
Thanks, Jeff. Dean?
Yeah, probably the one thing we could do, and I think we all agree on, is we need to do some reforming in our permitting system in this state. It is just so convoluted, especially on major projects. We've seen it in the district over and over, from over in Grace Harbor all the way down through Longview, Kelso, and of course the one that keeps coming to mind to most of us is the Northwest Innovation Works. So permitting definitely needs to be streamlined, and I have been working on that. Infrastructure also will help create jobs. When we do things like put $1 million into that Beach Street improvement in Longview, that's something that the city, there's no way that they were going to be able to pull that off on their own. And when that happens, there's going to be a whole bunch of industry that's going to come and locate down there, which will create jobs. So putting in water and sewer, helping these local districts, the cities and the counties, put in these infrastructures to open up some of these properties, creates jobs. Another one is a little bit technical, but tax increment financing. If the cities and the counties make a better use of that, I think, you could get some jobs out of that. Again, it's kind of a complicated thing, and I don't want to, I could spend far more than my 2 minutes trying to explain tax increment financing, but there are a number of tools that the legislature has given local governments to try and make it easier to develop and create jobs.
Okay, thanks, Dean. So our next question, I hold pretty close to my heart, although I didn't ask it. Rural school buildings tend to be used until the very end of their life. How are such schools to be rebuilt anytime over the next 5 years, given the current economic downturn? What will you do as a state senator to help schools like Wahkiakum? And the person that's starting this question is you, Jeff.
Education is everybody's big deal throughout the 19th legislative district. I mean, come on, it involves our children, our future. I can go on all these cliches. I don't need to reemphasize the importance of public education. And you're right, those brick and mortar buildings, some of them are very historical in nature. But I will offer to everybody that's watching tonight that a good economy and a solid economy always gives confidence amongst the local taxpayers to support those levies, those local levies to help build those schools. Now, the state has a part in that. However, most of that is going to originate through are the taxpayers in a local districts willing to sign on for a capital plan to remodel a school or upgrade a school. But this is a timely question because I'm not so sure the schools that we have built that need the attention, are they going to be the same? The COVID-19 has taught us a number of things. Are our buildings adequate enough? And quite frankly, shame on all of us that has forgotten about our school inadequacies. Just a few years ago, the hot topic was school safety and shooters and active shooters. And we seem to morph from hot topic to hot topic, but it all will come back to those buildings. Are they safe? Are they conducive? And how do we rebuild them? I'm going to tell you that we better get some great and good economic growth involved, and that will help seed that. It builds camaraderie amongst everybody when we create more taxpayers than we do tax takers. And quite frankly, that's what we need to do in the rural district that makes up the 19th. That's from Raymond to Longview to Ilwaco to Montesano.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Dean?
Yeah, one thing we need to do is try to get some more money out of our timber revenues that support school construction. The school SCAP, as they call it, School Construction Assistant Program, helps the schools such as Wahkiakum that really desperately needs it. We have been working on that. That if I can put in a pitch for Representative Blake, that is one of his passions. I've been trying to help him on it, but that's his thing, is that trying to get school construction money out of the a more efficient state timber sales. But you know, it's tough when you have an old school. And I know Wahkiakum is an old school because I was in the second year after it was, I started going there the second year after it was built, I believe. I'll be honest with you, I think there probably could have been some more vigorous remodels and updates and tender loving care with it over the years, because it got to the point where it just isn't, it's just too much to go for a bond. I was, supportive of the bond you guys were trying to do, but you got a low value school district for property tax, and that forces your bonds to be extremely expensive. Last session, we did buy down the bonds for 3 small schools. One was in the district, South Bend. They're in a similar situation where their assessed value of the district is so low that the levy rate for a bond is just exceedingly high, and we were able to get 3 schools in the state. I have been looking at trying to see if in this next capital budget we can't do that for a few more schools. And of course, one of mine that I'm going to probably be championing for would be to try and buy down a bond levy for Wahkiakum.
Okay, thank you. Wes?
Yeah, I go back to, well, I think also there is a constitutional responsibility at the state level, to help schools, local school districts. But I also say, it's important that local school districts, have that ability to, to build or maintain what they already have. I'm not a fan of the levy swap that was passed here in the McCleary decision, because what it does is it essentially takes a budget-based process and attaches a rate-based system on top of our property tax. And so if you have a year where your assessed value is high, there's going to be a lot of taxes that will be brought from that. But if you have a housing collapse, it's going to have the opposite effect. You're going to have maybe years or several years where that where schools, the state school fund is not receiving money. So I think that really needs to be looked at as far as funding our schools. And that's something that I will look at when I, as a state senator, because I really don't like the process we have. And I think it's going to cause problems for local districts that want to do, M&O levies and things like that. So it's something I'll definitely look at the state level, because with my background in the assessor's office as a real estate appraiser, I understand the levy process and how property taxes work. And I'm just really not a fan of the levy swap. So.
Thanks, Wes. We're nearing the end of our time. So we'd like to give each of you an opportunity to have 2 final minutes to kind of share your concluding thoughts or anything you wanted to address that wasn't asked of you tonight. And we'd like to have Dean, will you start?
Yeah, sure. First, I want to thank you guys for doing this. I know I've talked to some of you about putting this on, and I know it took a lot of work to do. So I appreciate you taking the time and the effort to do this. I've been in the legislature for some time now, and I think I have a reputation for 2 things. One is I work hard to get transportation and capital funds back to our district. Our district is one of the poorer districts when you really start looking across the state. And, it's a goal of mine to try and keep us in competition with some of the other districts. And I will tell you, in a number of years lately, we have gotten probably as much capital budget money into the 19th district for various projects as just about any other district. And I take a lot of credit for that. I work these projects, whether they're transportation or they're capital budget projects. And, I take a little pride in that. Also, I've got a reputation of being a moderate. And I think that shows when you look at, Jeff mentioned quite a bunch of taxes this evening, and you will notice that not one of those taxes has ever been voted on and passed on a statewide basis, whether it was the carbon, the pop, the soda pop, all those things that he was mentioning. And the reason is that there's a number of us that just won't go there, and we don't want to make our most regressive tax system in the United States. Out of the 50 states, we have the most regressive tax system, and some of those would make it even more regressive. So, I have got a reputation for getting things done. I don't go for headlines. I go for trying to get some work done up there. So with that said, I hope that you could vote for me, send me back, and let me do some more work for the district.
Thanks, Dean. Wes?
Yes, I'm not a career politician. I don't talk like a politician. I have a proven record and background as a Grace Harbor County Commissioner over the last 8 years. And I'd encourage people to go to voteforwes.com to look at that more. And something that Dean touched on that I like to comment on is I believe that it's kind of like in current politics, I call it the re-election enterprise. So you have a party that pushes funds to elected officials, public funds to elected officials, when they see maybe 2 strong candidates that are running against that candidate. And that's something that I'd love to stop at the state level, is this re-election enterprise that I call it, And what I will say is that as a Strong County Commissioner, I'll bring the same experience I have fighting the bureaucracy every step of the way to the state level. So I just hope you consider me in the August ballot, and I look forward to earning your vote. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Wes. Jeff?
Thanks, Debbie. Well, I'm going to advocate for myself, of course. I am the change that's needed. I have never been a career or a full-time politician until 2016, when I was elected to the Port of Longview, and I'm extremely proud of my record. In other words, my record consists of doing something that most people can't do, and that's keep their pledges and their promises. I have done such. It's a little alarming I need to give credit where credit is due to the Senate, not just for the ridiculous overspending of taxes. However, we get such greatest hits now as the comprehensive sex education bill. That's clearly not what Washingtonians wanted. There are 266,000 of them that have put it on the ballot this year. And finally, the voters will be respected at that ballot box. I mentioned being lost in touch with the district, and that's easily done. Those that are in office right now get to accept the credit that they're due. Higher business and occupation taxes, higher real estate taxes, just plain higher. I can summarize this by saying, if you want to change, I will be that change. If you would like to continue on with the way things have been going, then your vote is clear. Vote for the incumbent. You will get the exact same and more of what you're getting. I will not promise that. In fact, I have already promised the opposite. No income tax, no additional gains tax, and to respect the will of the voter with the Constitution in hand at every step of the way. To be transparent, no trickery with ghost bills. Let's end it all. Instead of talking about it, let's do this. And let's do this at the ballot box by voting for myself, Jeff Wilson. And for more information, check me out at www.jeffwilsonforsenate.com. Thank you.
Time's up.
Thank you. I'd like to thank everybody for being here tonight. And I'd really especially like to thank Wes, Dean, and Jeff for taking the risk, for being willing to participate in this forum. It's new to all of us, and we appreciate, your willingness to be here and to answer our questions and to show us what you believe and what you're about. We'd also like to thank the Wahkiakum County Democratic and Republican Party for being willing to come together and host this. The YouTube recording will remain online until the primary election is over. The same ID number and YouTube channel will be used for the next forum, which is Wednesday at 7. We'll host the 19th District Legislature candidates, Jim Walsh, Brian Blake, Clint Bryson, Mariana Everson, and Joel McIntyre. So please, everybody, join us for that event. We'd also ask that you take the time to vote and encourage others to vote. Stay safe, good night, and once again, thank you and good luck to all of you.
Thank you very much.
Ron, are you still there?
Yeah. Yes. Nice job, everybody. I'm going to turn off the YouTube and I'll be right back.